Hey kids, this is Pulse Ray Vision coming to you live from Quattro Cinco Studios in my mom's basement with another reading of Rings of Dust, chapter 16 and 17 beats that we're correcting, and then chapter 18, depending on how much time we have left and how long chapter 18 is. All right, guys, let's see here. Share this right here, but I'm actually going to share the whole screen because the beats are in a note document. I'll put up here on screen as well. So here we go. These are the corrections from 16 to 17. All right. Henderson Motel. This is when Emmeline saw me check into the hotel. She found a motel at the edge of Henderson, the same class as Barstow, maybe the same hotel in a different body. The parking lot had a pothole near the entrance, the size of a small ambition, and a burnt-out security light throwing orange nothing into the cracked asphalt. The office window still had the old transaction slot in the glass, the kind you'd slide credit card through. From back when that counted for something, a laminated sign behind the glass said no checks, no pets. Thank you for not smoking in rooms. The smoking visible where someone had tried to peel it off and given up. The carpet inside was the color of a decision no one would remember making. There was a vending machine at the end of the corridor, and it was down to two options, and both of them were the same brand of chip. All right, now here's Vance Black going out to the dark site. The dirt road ended up around the time his phone signal did. He had taken the 215 south, then a country road. The GPS had been certain about right up until it stopped being certain and gave him a gray square. He went by the signpost after that, which said nothing useful. And by the logic of a man who'd been doing this long enough to know that classified sites were almost always down roads that looked like they went nowhere. He was right. The razor wire gave it away before the fence did. He pulled to a stop outside the gate and looked at the guardhouse. Fresh white paint, brand new, the kind of install you did when you were covering something with more money than patience. He rolled down the window. The desert poured in, still warm from the day, dry and flat and indifferent. He picked up his badge off the passenger seat. Here we go, he said to no one. So that's him pulling up to it. Now, the notebooks are yours. Elsa made sure of that. So this is when they reveal that Jill is actually the heir of Marta von Prutzen at the colony. The colony is yours as well, Petra said. Everything we hold, everything the void has returned to us. Elsa's instructions were precise. Legal documents in the archive room, filled with independent registry on Pell Station. Authenticated and irrevocable. I am the executor. You are the heir. She said it the way she said everything, without ceremony, without needing a response. There is one more thing you should see before you go. She took Jill to the east tunnel, not to the dark end, not to the secondary branch. The door Jill had walked past twice and never been shown inside. Petra opened it. Jill stood in the doorway. The chamber was carved wide over decades, hollowed out with the patience of people who had somewhere specific to put what the void returned. The walls were ordinary asteroid rock. The floor was not. 6 asteroids over 17 years, each one broken down in parts and consolidated here, stored here, accumulated with the slow certainty of a practice that had not missed a cycle. It was not bars. It was not formatted for transport or display. It was just gold, dense and dull in the amber work lights. The accumulated value of 17 years of sacrifice filling the secondary branch from the floor to chest height, the way water fills a vessel over time, without anyone watching it rise. How much? Jill said. I stopped calculating 3 asteroids ago, Petra said. The number became very large, and when it became large enough, it stopped being information. She looked at the chamber. Tyler has opinions about what to do with it. The Void Walkers have different opinions. The Loyalists have a third set. She turned. You'll need to decide. And this is also something added to all that exposition and stuff going on in the colony. The kitchen had better food than she expected, real protein from an actual animal from somewhere with an atmosphere. She asked Yoon about it on the second day. Pell, he said, without looking up. Tyler runs a standing order, best grade, the station stocks. The colony budgets for that? Gold receipts, he said. The sacrificer is the big show, but the returns come back in a form that trades. Pell has access to markets we don't. He glanced over. Tyler wants to sacrifice more than we keep. I think it's easier to believe when you've had a good meal. She had thought about this for the rest of lunch and did not argue with it. On the third day, she found the memorial wall. It was at the junction between the main tunnel and the east branch, not marked, not framed, just carved directly into the asteroid rock in handwriting that had changed over the years as different people had added to it. 358 names. She stood there for a while. She read what she could read and stood with the rest. Nobody came by. Nobody explained it. Nobody needed to. On the fourth day, Yoon took her to the tunnel, not to the sacrifice point, but the section about 200 meters in, where the gradient started. He was carrying 2 mugs. He handed her one, and they walked. She noticed it after a while. The weight of the mug hadn't changed exactly, but the claim gravity made on it had, as if the asteroid had stopped insisting and was only suggesting. Here, Yoon said. She tilted her mug. The liquid lifted toward the rim, not a slosh, a rise, measured, like something had quietly revised its opinion about where it should be. It's a metaphor, Yoon said. He had said it on purpose, and he knew it. You walk in with a full cup, he said, and somewhere in the middle, it becomes something you're holding differently than you held it at the entrance. He took a slow sip, completely unbothered. Doesn't spill if you know what you're doing. She had run this kind of differential for years. The numbers, the tolerances, the launch windows, the gravity gradient opened and closed. She had delivered cargo in tighter corridors at higher differential than this. She still stood there for a while and watched her coffee lift toward the rim. All right. This is more of the rewriting that they brought back to Vance showing up at the dark site. The desert spread out in every direction. After an hour on dirt roads with mountains dimly visible through the haze, Vance pulled up the chain link fence topped with razor wire. Behind it, a partially demolished drive-in theater, its screen leaning like a relic. A spotless white guardhouse stood out of place against the decay. The guard came out, assault rifle, lazy smile. No movies today, sir. Turn around. Vance flashed his badge. You should be expecting me. Call whoever you need. The smile dropped. Out of the car, hands where I can see him. He complied slowly. The guard leveled the rifle and motioned him down, face down, arms spread. Vance lowered himself onto the scorching dirt. The heat came up through his shirt. Sand and grit stuck to his cheek. He heard the guard's knee hit the ground behind him, felt the cuff snap. How considerate, Vance said, mostly to the dirt. They kept him there a while they called in. He heard it through the guardhouse window. We've got a Vance Black, says he's got a Federation clearance. A pause. Looks fake to me. Another pause. Yes, sir, understood. The cuffs came off. Clear to proceed, Mr. Black. Main building, don't stray. The guard did not smile. Vance got back in the car and drove through. The drive-in ruins were a deliberate costume, broken concession stands, graffiti-covered ticket booths, a screen going nowhere. The modern building at the far end of the lot was the Tell, polished, clean, wrong for the neighborhood. Vance parked and went in. The lobby kept the theater's trappings: vintage posters, a dead popcorn machine, a soda dispenser with something rancid in the lines. A man in the pressed lab coat greeted him at the door. Dr. Leith, Director of Operations, welcome to Project Mirage. Down a narrow stairwell, through a keycard door, a long corridor with cameras every 20 feet, a live armored guard at the halfway mark, and a turret above the door marked Storage Room X that adjusted its aim as they walked past. Another reinforced door, a room that opened into a low-lit underground archive. The clerk behind the desk had the posture of someone hired to be unremarkable, which was itself a kind of remark. Blythe turned and backed and walked back the way he'd come without saying anything else. Vance showed his credentials. He asked for the Conrad files, Dr. Stephen Conrad, cross-reference under Federation Research Archives, Iris Development, the Gracie Nanoparticle Programs, years 2031 through 2038. Now here's one while they're getting locked in the bay by Taylor. BitBoy had found the junction box. It was recessed behind the harvester housing. The splice point where the bay's isolated power circuit fed the door locking mechanism. Taylor had the electronic sill. What Taylor didn't have was a biomechanical chimpanzee with metal forearms, willing to bridge the gap himself. Cole watched him position both mechanical upper arms across open terminals. The metal was already conducting. BitBoy's forearms were live junctions, always had been, and what he was about to do was run the full circuit through his own body to restore power to the door so long enough to reverse it. Cole looked at him. BitBoy looked back with the flat amber attention of something that had already made its decision. Cole did not need to say the word. Cole did not say the word. He didn't have to. BitBoy closed the circuit. The sound he made was not a sound he had heard before, and hoped not to hear again. The arc went through both arms simultaneously, a crack, a brief blue-white flash, the smell of scorched metal. His LEDs spiked to white and then went dark. Cole was already going. Sam said his name. He heard it from a long distance. And this is Taylor venting the bay. He'd run the math, no power to the door's locking circuit. Taylor had held isolated bay systems, meant the only exit stayed shut and the one mechanical variable left. The harvesting housing container contained raw dark X plasma. Nobody opened that in a sealed room. Nobody deliberately bridged a live electrical arc through their own body to restore circuit power. These were not things people did. Taylor's model of the situation did not include things people did not do. He was betting on two things: that no one in their right mind would open the harvester, and that without the power to the door locking circuit, the only exit stayed shut. Both reasonable bets. Both the kind of calculation a man like Taylor made, because he had never seen the people he was calculating both reasonable bets. Both the kind of calculation a man like Taylor made, because he had never seen the people he was calculating against do something genuine. Get rid of this right here. Genuinely unreasonable. That's a wordy little last sentence, isn't it? Let's actually copy that. Yeah, that needs to be shortened right there. This is too wordy. It needs to be more concise and cleaner. All right, kids, that was beats of 17 and 18 that we changed and added to the book. Now our next destination is chapter 18. And we'll jump into that right Now it's Ray's cargo. Rings of Dust, Chapter 18, Ray's cargo. 6 blocks from the hardware store was a park. Ray had identified it in the early days of the Mikov Forcinco operation on his 4th perimeter walk, when he was still getting his cover right, the practice rhythm of a scientist on contract, efficient and unhurried, the lunch routes and errand routes, and the way a man who belongs somewhere moves through a neighborhood versus the way a man who's watching it does. The park had 2 benches facing a fountain that no longer worked. The fountain was shaped like a heron. Long-legged, long neck, beak angled down toward a basin that had been dry for years. It was concrete, gray-green, the color of things left outside without attention. Whoever had cast it had been careful about the feathers. They were carved individually along each wing, distinct one by one. The work of someone who had looked at a real heron and wanted to get it right. Whoever had set the base had gotten the angle slightly wrong. The heron listed 4 degrees towards the east, and had been listing that way long enough that the tilt no longer read as a mistake. It read as the bird's opinion. Ray had liked it because it was the kind of detail that felt permanent in its imperfections. No one was going to fix the heron. And permanent things made good landmarks. Squirrel was on the second bench. He was reading a newspaper that was 4 days old in a language that was not his first language. Ray had figured out this on the second day of the Panama operation from the way Squirrel's eyes moved along the lines, the slight recalibration at the end of each paragraph. He had not mentioned it. Mentioning things like that was not Ray's job. Noticing them was. Red was at the far edge of the park watching the street. Ray sat down on the first bench. He did not look at Squirrel. He looked at the heron. He had been 3 blocks from the facility when his hands had started to shake. He had been 3.5 blocks when he had identified what the shaking was. Adrenaline clearing, the body filing its report. He had walked the 6 blocks of the park with his hands in his pockets and his pace at contractor leaving for dinner, and the whole walk he'd been thinking about his colleagues. He sat on the bench. "Did you get it?" Squirrel said. He said to the newspaper. "Yes." "The full protocol?" "Disposal Protocol 11 and the project archives up to the current quarter. 17 months of records." Ray looked at the heron. "They named it 11, which means there are at least 10 others." Squirrel was quiet for a moment. "Hand," he said. Ray put his right hand into his jacket pocket, felt the contact of the squirrel's fingers closing around the drive. He brought his hand back out empty. "You're shaking," Squirrel said. "I know. Are you hurt?" "No." Ray looked at the fountain basin, which had been dry for long enough that something had grown in it, a thin, patchy green, the kind of life that moves into empty spaces. A pigeon landed at the edge of the basin and looked at the growth with interested detachment of a creature for whom the world contained nothing that was not potentially edible. Ray watched it investigate and leave. Jeez Louise, that's a horrible line right there. Pigeon landed at the edge. Copy that. This line from chapter 18 sucks too. Ray watched it investigate and leave. "There was something else," Ray said. "Before I found the protocol in the 2030 batch logs." He was quiet for a moment. One word, an annotation on a standard yield record. Squirrel set the newspaper down without folding it. He did not look at Ray. "Jackpot." Ray looked at the heron. "A technician wrote it in a log from 2030. Whoever they were, they probably thought they were being clever. The batch had performed well. The annotation fit. They had no way of knowing it was my word." I never told anyone I said it. I said it to an empty apartment on a Tuesday to nobody when the cell read out on day 11 and I understood what I was looking at. He didn't say it to an empty apartment on a Tuesday. Jiminy Christmas. I fixed this like 4 times. Also, under paragraph 85 in chapter 18, we fixed this several times. He wasn't in the apartment, he was in front of his locker at work. So fix it for real this time. 2 hours later, I was walking my department head through the data. The next morning, I was carrying a box out of the building. He paused. Seeing it in their records, that was when my hands started shaking. Not the walkout, not the 6 blocks. That word in a log from 2030, used casually by someone on my discovery. They silenced me and continued. And somewhere in a year or two, someone on their team had the same reflex I did, said the same word, the word I thought was mine, and wrote it down without knowing. He looked at his hands. After that, I understood the full shape of it. Squirrel set the newspaper on the bench. The lining of his jacket shifted as he moved. Hang on. 87. I think he already set it down. I think Claude is sucking at some of these actions. Okay, there's the newspaper. Did you get it? Yeah, it's right hand pocket. You're shaking, but you're hurt. Pigeon landed. Something else. Squirrel set the newspaper down without folding it. Yeah, 83. So 83. Let's copy that. Oh, Jiminy Christmas. Copy. Oh, no, it's trying to get me to do that. No, I just want to copy this right here. This is line 83, chapter 18. And this is line 87. Pretty damn sloppy, bro. The lining of his jacket shifted as he moved, and Ray caught what he'd caught in Marabella twice in Panama and did not mention. The embroidered outline stitched against the inner fabric dark on dark. A wrench in gold thread barely visible in the crease. He looked at the fountain. Disposal Protocol 11, Ray said. What I read, what I had time to read, which wasn't all of it, is not just the stabilization process. It's not just one product line or one research division. It's a supply chain decision. They're managing the rate at which solutions reach the market. They have had 11 viable technologies at varying stages of deployment and readiness. And they're holding 7 of them back until the price point and the market conditions meet specific internal thresholds. He paused. The energy crisis is an inventory decision. The mechanism runs on physics, Ray said. Every time you break open a sealed cell, the harvest crystals deplete at 10% of the dark matter vaporizes the instant the seal breaks. Escapes into the atmosphere, gone. There's no way to prevent it. It's a fixed cost of any depletion operation. Alpha's internal term for this, the depletion coefficient, he looked at the Heron. The disposal protocol destroys 11 to 13% per batch, 1 to 3 points above the unavoidable baseline, close enough to natural attribution to disappear into the expected weights column on any audit that isn't looking for the delta. He paused. 17 months of records. Every quarter, they've been running this below the detection threshold since the program began. Squirrel nodded. They didn't cause it on purpose, Ray said. Not the original crisis. The banking assault on CryptoGrid did that, but Polaris made it worse. But once the shortage was established, once the infrastructure collapsed enough to create dependency, they started managing the recovery. They decided how fast the lights came back on. They decide when. He looked at the heron. The world has been sitting in the dark waiting for solutions that have been on a shelf in Panama for years. And the reason they're on the shelf is because the timing isn't profitable yet. That's going to be important, Squirrel said, for what happens next. What happens next? The proof goes out. Through the parallel network, the same gray market your fuel cell research has been circulating in for 2 years. Decentralized, no single point of control for Alphabet's press. It's going to reach about 200,000 people in the first 48 hours. Squirrel paused. After that, it's not ours to manage. Ray thought about 200,000 people. He thought about what they would do with 17 months of disposable protocol records and the names of 11 technologies and internal communications of a company that had decided how fast humanity could come in from the cold. He thought about the people in that building, colleagues who had been generous with their time and their expertise, who'd walked him through processes they were proud of, who had no idea what was being done around them with the work they contributed to. There are people in that building who had no idea what they were building, Ray said. Squirrel was quiet. I was in there long enough to know that, to be certain of it. Ray looked at his hands. They'd stopped shaking, but he was watching them anyway. They were collegial, genuinely helpful, the kind of people who enjoy their work and want other people to enjoy it too. He paused. They're going to come to work and find out that someone used their trust as operational cover. He stopped. That does something to a person. It does, Squirrel said. I want you to understand that I know that. Ray looked up. I didn't abstract it. I knew it going in, what it would cost them. I knew, and I went in anyway, and I got the drive, and now I'm sitting here telling you that I know. He paused. I needed to say to someone who would hear it. Squirrel was looking for a long time. He picked up the newspaper. He set it back down. I hear it, he said. The pigeon came back to the fountain. Oh, it's pigeon again. And left again. 2 women went past on the path behind them, talking in rapid Spanish about something domestic and urgent. The afternoon had the quality of a city that didn't know anything had just changed, which was accurate because nothing had changed yet. The drive was in Squirrel's pockets, and the relay hadn't gone out. In 18 hours, the world would still look like the same world it had been when Ray walked into a hardware store in Casco Viejo under a name that wasn't his. And then it wouldn't. I've been thinking about the flywheel since I left the building, Ray said. The curve. He turned the math over in the ways he always turned the math over, the way he had been turning it over since the oak table and the fuel cell and the first data report that shouldn't have been possible. Link the cells together and hold them past the 11-day window. 33 days of continuous linkage, 10 times the internal yield. Ongoing as long as they stay connected. You could monetize that for decades if you wanted to, and they will want to. He stopped. But the thing they're really afraid of isn't even in the drive yet, he said. Not the proof, not the protocol records, the flywheel, and I can't prove the flywheel, not yet. The 33-day number is solid. I pulled it straight out of their own data. After that, their data just stops, but the curve was still climbing when they quit measuring it, and I think if you keep the cells linked long enough and take them somewhere there's no gravity holding growth down, it doesn't just climb. It breaks. The cells start giving back on their own on a cycle for as long as you leave them linked. He looked at his hands. If that's true, and I believe it is, you cannot manufacture a shortage of something that produces its own abundance on a clock. Once people understand that, the scarcity model has nowhere to go. He paused. The official statement is that the shortage is structural, Ray said, a supply problem, something the Federation and Alpha Corp are working to resolve together. Something almost resolved. That is what anyone following the public record has been told. He looked at the heron. That is what people believe. He paused. That was never a supply problem. It is a race to control the grid. Alpha on one side, everyone who knows what these cells actually are on the other. They've been winning that race for a decade by making sure nobody knows it's happening. Squirrel was watching him. But the plateau, Ray said. The ceiling on the growth curve, I can model the mechanism. I can show the suppression records. I can tell you what I know should happen in zero gravity. But I haven't run it. I haven't been able to run it. He looked at the heron. The plateau disappears in zero gravity. I'm certain of it. The data points to it, but certainly without the experiment is still a model. It's not proof. He had a name for it now, a theory he couldn't prove on the ground. The anti-gravity project. He said, a flywheel in zero gravity. If the growth plateau disappeared without gravity holding it down, everything changed. Squirrel was quiet for a moment. You've been running on that. For a long time, Squirrel said. Yes. Ray? He looked at Squirrel. There's someone else working on this theory. The zero gravity variable, Squirrel paused. She's been running the same curve from a different direction. She has data you don't have. He let that settle. She's on her way here. Ray looked at him. Here? He said. Red leaned back on the bench. You know, most people get extracted from a company. Most people get extracted from a company that tried to kill them, and they go somewhere quiet. You went back inside wearing a fake name and got promoted. Squirrel, who had not smiled once during the entire Panama observation, did not smile now. She has the notebooks. She has the zero gravity data. She doesn't know what you found yet. Don't explain it to her. Let her see the overlap herself. The transit house. Red is there. Squirrel picked up the newspaper. She's not a field person. She's a scientist. He paused. Go. Ray did not move immediately. Okay, so the transit house, Red is there. Squirrel picked up the newspaper. Again, she's not a field person. She's a scientist. But he's not talking about Squirrel there. So 2:30. Oh, goodness gracious. Can I not copy the number? Nope, because it's a line of code. Okay, there we go. Let's just copy this. This is from line 230 in chapter 18. Are they referring to Jill? Because Jill's not a scientist. She's a space punk. Ray did not move immediately. He sat with the heron for one more moment. The 4-degree list, the empty basin, the thin green growth at the edges. He thought about the colleagues in the building. He thought about the proof in Squirrel's pocket. He thought about the curve he had been running in his sleep for 2 years, and a woman he had never met who apparently had been running the same one. He stood up, his legs held without asking anything difficult of them. His hands were in his pockets. His pace, when he walked away from the bench, was the same unhurried pace of a man who belonged somewhere, or who had learned well enough across enough time in enough cities how to look like he did. Boom. All right, so this is going to need a part 2. But, yeah, holy macaroni. We got a handful of people watching. What's up, homies? If you would like to learn more about the project, the crypto project, AG project, anti-gravity project, like they just said in the book, go to agproject.io. It's on Pulse Chain. It's got a crazy, great community on Telegram, t.me/antigravity saga. If you want to read this or have AI read it to you in a better voice, you can actually find the link to the public GitHub repo that I'm reading from, and that is being updated every time we do this inside of Claude and try to get stuff to work. Anyways, yeah, you guys are great. Check us out, and I'll be streaming again about a project update very soon. Oh my goodness, we are under 19 hours of some big stuff happening on agproject.io. All right, let's end this stream, and we will catch you on the next ones. Ciao.